Today is all about meringue on Martha Bakes, an Ile Flottante that's baked in the oven rather than poached in a pan. A beautiful Pavlova, large one or individual smaller ones, light and fluffy and airy and dry, can be filled with all kinds of things. And this unusual thing is called a Huguenot Torte, kind of a variation on a meringue. And when it's broken up and served with whipped cream, it is one of the most delicious things you've ever tasted. That's what you're going to learn how to bake today on Martha Bakes. Pavlova is a mound of sugar-flavored beaten egg whites baked in an oven until it's dry. It can be filled with all kinds of things, from passion fruit to berries to even bananas. Topped with whipped cream, it makes a spectacular dessert. Pavlova was Anna Pavlova. She was a very beautiful ballet dancer who visited New Zealand and Australia in the 1920s. And as legend has it, Anna Pavlova inspired the creation of a very fluffy, beautiful egg white confection named Pavlova. And we're going to make a double batch today. Instead of the 4 egg whites, we're going to do 8 egg whites. I like a large Pavlova to serve as a dessert. And beat up egg whites. It's basically a lot of beating. And we're going to use 2 1/4 cups of castor sugar or very fine sugar to incorporate into the egg whites. And you add the sugar very slowly as the egg whites break down and start to fluff up. So very slowly, tablespoon at a time. And it's very important to beat them until they're glossy and shiny, but not dry and not breaking up. What we want is a silky, silky, smooth egg white mixture. Then the next cup of sugar. And the egg whites are at room temperature, which helps the egg whites to become more voluminous. Cold egg whites won't beat up quite as stiffly or as high. And now 1/4 cup. So 2 1/4 cups of superfine or castor sugar. Also a pinch of salt, and since we're doubling the recipe, a large pinch of salt. While these beat, you can prepare your pans. This is a glass bowl, and I'm just making a tracing of the bowl on the paper. This is about 8 inches in diameter. Make a tracing, turn it upside down. You don't want to bake on the pencil mark. Then I'll do the other one free form, because you can really make these individual for individual servings, or you can make a larger one that you can break or cut with a serrated knife, whatever you really like. And you can keep a baked Pavlova in a covered airtight container overnight or even for a couple days before you serve it, just to keep it out of any humidity. So you see, this is already starting to gain in volume. And now add your vanilla extract, 2 teaspoons. Looking very good. And the vinegar, 3 teaspoons for a double recipe. It helps stabilize the egg whites and helps prevent the meringues from collapsing in the oven. Very silky, very smooth. And then we're going to add the cornstarch. You can reduce the speed a little bit and just add 1 teaspoon for each recipe, so basically 2 teaspoons. What could be easier than that? Beating egg whites with sugar. Just the texture you want. Silky, smooth, soft peaks. Okay, so here. Just mound half of this on this sheet, working with your circled tracing. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to look kind of rustic and rough. That's the beauty of meringue. It can really keep a beautiful shape. And then you can make individual ones of these. Preheat your oven to 300 degrees. And be prepared to keep these meringues in the oven for about an hour, hour and a quarter, and then in a turned off oven for another hour and a half to 2 hours. I like making this at night even, and then just turn off the oven and go to bed. Put these in the oven. The oven is preheated to 300. Reduce the heat to 200 and set your timer. I'm going to set my timer for an hour. So I thought I'd show you how to serve your pavlovas. I'm cutting a little circle in the bottom of the pavlova, just making a cavity, filling this with some passion fruit sorbet, putting it back on the plate, cutting open a passion fruit. Now these are a new variety of passion fruit. They have beautiful, beautiful seeds inside. Very juicy, very fragrant. Spoon these on top and over and around. And then a big dollop of whipped cream right on top. And you might like to put a little bit more of the passion fruit seeds on top. That is a pavlova. Eat it with a spoon and a fork and enjoy. The Huguenot Torte is a variation on a meringue. It does incorporate egg yolks into the mix, but it's flaky and light, flavored with pecans and Granny Smith apples. Broken, it is rustic, and served with whipped cream, it is delicious. Now I've included the next recipe, which is not really just a meringue in this show because it looks like a meringue. It has egg yolks. We're using whole eggs and a lot of leavening, actually 5 teaspoons of baking powder, but it looks like meringue when it's done, and you treat it like a meringue. 4 whole eggs in a stand mixer and fitted with a flat paddle. Okay, and start beating those. We're using that newfangled flat beater, which really makes a difference in scraping down the sides of the bowl and also creating more volume in the eggs. Now, prepare your pans. I prepared this one already. Spray a cookie sheet with a little bit of original Pam. This helps keep the parchment down when you're filling the pan with the mixture, and spray well. There. They are ready to be filled. And we've also chopped up some pecans, and we have 3 large Granny Smith apples, unpeeled, cored, and cut into 1/2-inch dice. And you'll need some baking powder and some vanilla. So again, very simple ingredients. This looks really good. And now we can start adding our 3 cups of sugar gradually. So let that beat and beat, and you can see it's getting creamier and pale yellow. And now we're going to sift 8 tablespoons of flour and 5 teaspoons of fresh baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So sift these together. And vanilla, 2 teaspoons. That's looking very light, very fluffy. And now add your dry ingredients a little bit at a time. 1, 2, 3. And I think we're done. Now you can use a big spatula to fold in the pecans. And then your apples. And this mixture we're going to spread in those 2 cookie sheets, half and half. Make sure you have your oven preheated to 325. And just spread this on your cookie sheet. Get this right into your preheated oven, and it's going to bake for about 45 minutes. Ile Flottante, floating islands, has many different kinds of names, but it's basically sugary egg whites beaten to a froth and usually poached in milk or water. This one is baked in a bundt pan, topped with caramel and lots of crème anglaise. It is a really formal and formidable dessert. Many years ago, when I was on a trip to Florida, a hostess made me a very delicious baked meringue that looked and tasted like Ile Flottante, or floating islands. I asked her for the recipe, which she promptly sent me, and I promptly lost. And over the years, I've been looking and looking and looking for a similar recipe. You can make floating islands by poaching the meringue, the egg whites that are beaten with sugar, in milk or in water, but baking it in a mold and then being able to slice that dessert is really very effective and very charming, and it's very easy. Choose a mold that you would like. One recipe of this Ile Flottante will fill this mold almost to the top. 2 recipes will fill this mold all the way to the top, which is, I think, a little bit better. And one of these smaller molds, you can use a glass mold like this. This is a Kugel mold. And this is an old-fashioned redware mold, which I bake in often. This also has a very nice shape, and when turned out, the floating island is very pretty. So you can use anything. I think today we're going to use this glass one just so that you can see what the dessert looks like. Brushing with a little bit of safflower oil is an effective way to prevent sticking. Don't forget the center tube. We're going to make 2 batches, 9 egg whites each. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees. You can turn this upside down if you want, just to make sure that there's no excess oil. And start beating your egg whites. We have 2 mixers, dueling mixers here today. Now, while the eggs are kind of breaking down, add 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar to each bowl. This helps keep the egg whites dry, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt to each. Now, like a tablespoon at a time, add your sugar. 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of superfine sugar. Now you want to beat it until they are firm, soft peaks, just like for the beautiful Pavlovas. And we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Done. There's 1. There. So start spooning in. The first layer is important to get down into the pretty design in the bottom of the bundt pan, because that's what you're going to see. You're going to turn this upside down on your serving platter. And actually, I mentioned my loss of this recipe on my TV show, and a man called Frank Piccione from New York, I think, came on my show with the recipe. We made it together, and it was indeed the lost recipe. And this is a dessert that everybody seems to like. Now see, if you look down, you can see in the bowl whether you filled the mold. This is a good mold to practice with. And now it's time to put your molds in a hot water bath in a 375-degree preheated oven for approximately 20 minutes. Wait till you see what happens. The water is simmering. Water should come halfway up the mold, and make sure it's hot. 375, 20 minutes, set your timer. Now our baked Ile Flottante is going to come out of the oven in a little while, and I want to be prepared with our crème anglaise, which is a wonderful sauce in which the Ile Flottante, or the floating island, can float on the plate. It's a custard sauce, it's light, it's very, very delicious, flavored with vanilla bean, and it's not very difficult to make. You need heavy cream, three-quarters of a cup, and 1 1/4 cups of whole milk, equaling 2 cups. And 1/2 of a vanilla bean, which is split and scraped. See that wonderful, wonderful vanilla seed? Now scald this right on top of the stove. Sounds like our floating islands are done. Oh boy, those look amazing. You can take the whole water bath out and put this right on your stove. It's heavy, it's dangerous. Be careful, don't spill it. Very impressive. I can stay right there. And they can sit in their hot water bath for a little while to cool. They will shrink. They will never look as impressive as they look right now. But that's okay, because there's still enough of the mixture in the pan so that you'll get a very impressive dessert. And we have 4 egg yolks broken up into a bowl. You can break up your egg yolks. And to your egg yolks, add 3 tablespoons of sugar and a pinch of salt. And just whisk this around. Oh, and the milk is just coming to a boil, scalding nicely. And we want to temper the eggs. So you add a little bit of that scalding hot milk to your egg yolks. A little bit at a time. It smells really good. Okay, so this is going to go right back into your milk and cream. And return to the heat and cook until it coats the back of a wooden spoon. Now that'll take around 3 or 4 minutes. Pour this through a sieve, cool to room temperature, and you will serve with your Ile Flottante. Very pretty. And now one last thing to make for the Ile Flottante. 1 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of water. Put over high heat. We're making a caramel syrup. And we want the water to dissolve the sugar over high heat and start to turn an amber color. That's going to take about 3 minutes. A syrup like this actually will get really dark if you walk away from it. Watch it carefully. You only want it to be a light amber caramelly color, not black. There, that's a beautiful color. And now add your 1/2 cup of water. It will splutter. We want to get this up to 230 degrees, which is like a softball stage for the syrup. When it reaches 230, get it right off the heat and immerse the bottom of the pan in some cold water. This will sizzle, and that is going to be poured over the turned out Ile Flottante. Glorious. That's what you want your dessert to look like. Isn't that just perfect? This is the Huguenot Torte. It's crispy yet moist, filled with apples and pecans, and topped with whipped cream. I love desserts that are a surprise, like this one. It is delicious.